Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, well, that was interesting. Hi, how are you doing? I hope this finds you in good health and secure. I started this video just as I was starting to read the Vimalakirti, and a computer crashed. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Come on, stay with me. Okay. We are starting a new chapter, Fragrance Accumulated, which sounds like one of our naming conventions for Bodhisattva, yeah? Let's find out. As has been the case through several chapters, good old Shariputra, the Shravaka, starts out with some non sequitur thought, and that launches us into elucidations, corrections, what have you. And this chapter looks to be no different. So, at that time, Shariputra thought to himself, it's almost noon. What are all these bodhisattvas going to eat? It's like a 1950s movie, right? Gee, Wally, what's going on? What are you paying attention to, Shariputra? Well, he's just trying to be a good guy, yeah? But he seems to be easily distracted. Then Vimalakirti, knowing what was in his mind, said, the Buddha preached the 8 emancipations. You, sir, should undertake to practice them. Why be distracted by thoughts of eating when you are listening to the law? It's kind of important. If you want something to eat, just wait a moment. I will see that you get the sort of food you have never had before. Okay. An enticement to regain Shariputra's attention. Vimalakirti then entered Samadhi and, employing his transcendental powers, showed the great assembly a country called Many Fragrances. Situated in a region high above, beyond Buddha lands as numerous as the sands of the 42 Ganges. Now we're getting into the hyperbole of Buddhist storytelling, right? The Buddha named Fragrance Accumulated. What do you know? It's a Buddha, not a Bodhisattva. Was at that time present there. The fragrance of his country was finer than the fragrance of all the human and heavenly realms of the Buddha lands of the 10 directions. In his land there was not even the term voice hearer or pratyeka Buddha, but only great bodhisattvas, pure and clean in their thinking, for whom the Buddha preached the law. All the inhabitants of this world built their halls and towers out of fragrances, strolled the fragrant ground, and had gardens all made of fragrances. Do you think this is based on food? So that's why there's such a focus on the consciousness of smell? Maybe. It's certainly a big part of our experience of food, our taste, yeah? The fragrant aroma of their food wafted to immeasurable worlds in the 10 directions. So this is all about this satiation of food, right? So Shariputra must be wrapped in attention, as is everyone else in the room, because Vimalakirti is making this a gargantuan experience for everyone, yes? At this time, the Buddha and the various bodhisattvas were just sitting down together to eat. Heavenly offspring, not sure what that is, all named Fragrant Garland, all with their minds set on attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhaya, were serving the meal to the Buddha and the bodhisattvas. I mean, this is a land, a world where everybody's on the verge of enlightenment, right? They don't even know what a Sharvaka or Pratyeka Buddha was. That he dropped that into the mix a little earlier. So all of you working on understanding what enlightenment is, none of you there. Everyone there is already coursing as bodhisattvas with the Buddha way. I don't know if that's kind of a little bit of a backhand to Shariputra, or if it's just explaining something that Shariputra should be aspiring for. Not sure how to read that yet, but let's go on. Among the great assembly gathered at Vimalakirti's house, there were none who could not see these things with their own eyes. So Vimalakirti had made a really good job of enthralling everyone's mind in this picture of fragrance accumulated Buddha. Then Vimalakirti addressed the bodhisattvas, saying, "Sirs, who among you can bring us some of that Buddha's food? Who can reach into this mental space and bring to this room for us to consume that Buddha, that realm's food?" And out of deference to Manjushri's authority, being the head amongst all of the people in the room at the time, and supernatural powers, however, all of them remained silent. It's like that scene in the movie where this great man asks a question of everyone, and everyone goes and defers to Manjushri to articulate an answer, yeah? So addressing Manjushri, since everyone's turned their attention to him, Vimalakirti says to him directly, "Sir, a great assembly such as this is shameful, is it not?" What's shameful? That no one can speak for themselves to volunteer how they can bring this great food to the room? Manjushri replies, "As the Buddha has told us, never despise those who have yet to learn." So you could take what Vimalakirti said about everyone not responding as a slight on them, not rising to the occasion. But on the other hand, Manjushri kind of defends them and saying, well, Buddha taught that just because they still need to learn, there's no reason to shame them. Okay, it's an interesting back and forth we're having here. So then Vimalakirti, without rising from his seat, but in the presence of the whole gathering, conjured up a phantom bodhisattva, whose auspicious features, shining brightness, authority, and virtue were so superior that they outshone the entire group. Then he announced to this bodhisattva, "You must go to the region high above, beyond Buddha lands, numerous as the sands of 42 Ganges, where there is a country called Many Fragrances. The Buddha named Fragrance Accumulated is just now sitting down with his bodhisattvas to a meal. When you arrive in his presence, speak as I instruct you, saying," quote, "Vimalakirti bows his head before the feet of the world-honored one with immeasurable reverence and begs to inquire if in your daily activities your illnesses are few, Your worries are few. Does your strength suffice you? He desires to obtain the leftovers from this meal of the world-honored one, so that he may carry out the Buddha's work by dispensing them in the Saha world, enabling those who delight in a lesser doctrine to be broadened by the great way, and also to cause the thus come one's fame to be heard on all sides. Now it becomes clear what Vimalakirti is doing. He has identified in his messenger by identifying what he wants to ask of this food source through this enlightened being, he has kind of sideways told the whole room, including Shariputra, the proper attitude here. And he's really restating in a visual way what he started out telling Shariputra. Why are you complaining? Why are you preoccupied with a grumbling stomach when you're in the midst of such an enlightening speech and teaching? Certainly, you can wait a minute. Isn't this far more important than your grumbling stomach? Or maybe it's not even a grumbling stomach. Maybe it's just a passing thought. I wonder if there's any crackers. Are you paying attention? So in this quote, he says, maybe with a morsel, an aspect of what it is to know this teaching, you can share with these lesser teachings, these people who are stuck in their lesser programs, teachings, learnings, and rise them out of their doldrums of the lesser teachings so that they can taste of, feel inspired by, attain a higher goal of the Buddha's teaching. Experience actual enlightenment. The device is food or fragrance, but the message is the same. Stop being lazy in your doldrums of repetition of the same old rules and rituals and so forth. Aim higher. Understand what the actual goal is. That should be so amazing, wondrous, and attractive that your petty little issues are secondary at best. They shouldn't be interrupting you. And this is why he says, thus doth come one's fame to be heard on all sides, preventing you from distractions from here, there, or anywhere. Do you see? Continuing, at that time, this conjured bodhisattva, in the presence of the gathering, ascended to the region high above. Imaginary thinking, right? Everyone in the entire assembly could see him as he departed. I think I'm getting a clue here. And he arrived, as he arrived, in the world called Many Fragrances, and made his obeisance at the feet of the Buddha there. And they could hear him say, Vimalakirti bows his head before the feet of the world-honored one with immeasurable reverence and begs to inquire into your daily activities. If your illnesses are few, your worries are few, does your strength suffice you? He desires to obtain the leftovers of this meal of the world-honored one so he may carry out the Buddha's work by dispensing the Buddha's teachings, the ultimate truth, In the Saha world, samsara, ensuring that those who delight in lesser doctrines, Sharvatas and Pratyekabuddhas, Hinayanists, Agama, early teachings, and they will be broadened, their scope, their mind will be broadened by the great way, and also that the thus come one's fame may be heard on all sides, so that not only will they learn a much more profound teaching, but that will surround their attention to prevent them from distraction, from their monkey mind, yeah? When the great men of the country Many Fragrances saw this conjured bodhisattva, they sighed at seeing what they had never seen before and said, quote, "Where has this superior being come from? The Saha world? Where is that?" They don't know anything of it. "What is this thing he calls a lesser doctrine?" They don't know Pratyeka Buddha or Shravaka or the early teachings. They're much more immersed in and involved with walking the bodhisattva path to stay in the gate of emancipation, to be in Buddha-ness, yeah? When they had all put this question to their Buddha, their leader, their enlightened one, the Buddha announced to them, quote, "In the lower region, beyond Buddha lands as numerous as the sands of 42 Ganges, there is a world called Saha, samsara. The Buddha named Shakyamuni is at present manifesting himself in that evil world of the 5 impurities in order to expound the teachings of the way to living beings who delight in lesser doctrines." He's talking to us. At the time, not bodhisattvas of the earth, but students of Buddhism who were on the path to realizing their mind's capacity for enlightenment. But the other side of that is that they were practicing teachings that were just designed to broaden their minds, but they hadn't achieved it yet. So, it's just like anything. You learn certain steps, like math again, that analogy. You learn how to add and subtract, and you learn, right? And each step is valued by the student, but it's a value of something that's lesser than the goal, right? He has a bodhisattva named Vimalakirti, who dwells in the emancipation beyond comprehension and preaches the law for the other bodhisattvas. He has purposely dispatched this phantom being to come and extol my name and praise this land, so that thereby he may bring increased benefits to those bodhisattvas. So here's that device again, right? Vimalakirti, from the speaking point of his imagination, comes back to again say to all of the people in Vimalakirti's house, Vimalakirti is making an appeal to this Buddha-ness, to this ultimate truth, this ultimate Dharma, to reach, to somehow penetrate into the minds of those who are not yet truly aspiring to it, because they're involved in their own little personal dramas with lesser teachings. They're not reaching beyond to the goal. They're rather kind of stuck. So not only does Vimalakirti with this story indicate that, but he's letting the story speak back at him and the assembly the message he's trying to get these people to understand. It's very interesting, the device of the teachings, yeah? The Bodhisattva said, how can this man conjure up a phantom such as this? We're still in this alternate space, right? Does he possess such strength of virtue, such fearlessness, such transcendental powers? And the Buddha, in this case, fragrances accumulated Buddha, says, his powers are indeed great. He dispatches phantoms in all 10 directions to carry out the Buddha's work and bring enrichment to living beings. Then the thus come one fragrance accumulated, took a bowl of many fragrances, filled it with fragrant rice, and gave it to the phantom bodhisattva. So what is the rice standing in for? The nurturing of the teachings. The teachings is the food. The Dharma is the food. And he's going to bring that great wisdom of Buddha-ness in the form of food, with its influence, fragrances. You see how everything tracks? If you keep your mind on what it is we're talking about in Buddhism, attitude and intent, awakening, clarity, your depth of appreciation for that goal, for what that is, moment to moment to moment, grows. And you understand all this rhetoric are picturesque ways, transcendental powers, whatever fancy words you want to put on it. There's another thing, too, I wanted to point out again. Phantom. This is exactly what Shakyamuni does when he invents Amitabha Buddha, or whatever Buddha or Bodhisattva. These are phantoms. These are teaching tools, perceptive awakenings, clues to use the mind. At that time, the 9 million bodhisattvas all spoke out in unison in this fragrance land. We wish to visit this Saha world and offer alms to Shakyamuni Buddha. He's doing a great job. It's a little self-congratulatory if you understand this is Shakyamuni speaking through the personage of Vimalakirti, yeah? And we also wish to see Vimalakirti and the many other bodhisattvas. So this enlightenment dharma, this teaching from Buddha itself, as well as all the bodhisattvas in this land, are wanting to do what? They want to be Bodhi. They want to be bodhisattva. They want to inspire all these others to be excited, motivated, grasping at their enlightenment rather than stuff. To take that energy of grasping and craving and putting it to their release, their Buddha-ness. Bodhi gonna Bodhi in modern terms, right? You may go, said the Buddha, but draw in your bodily fragrances so that you will not cause living beings to be deluded or beguiled by them. Bring the teaching alone. Don't put your ego in there anywhere to be found or experienced. Don't let it be you who brings the teaching. Let the teaching come to the group, clear and free of the one that carries it. That's real bodhisattva work there. And he's telling this phantom bodhisattva as much. Don't be the phantom bodhisattva who delivers the food. Just deliver the food. That's very important. It's a little, almost a footnote in this story, but it's super important. And you should put aside your real form so that the persons in that country who are striving to become bodhisattvas will not feel intimidated or ashamed. Provide so that people come, all these people, come to their own realization. Don't let them be tripped up, foiled in any way of their perception that this food is great, but that's because you brought it. I wish I could be like that bodhisattva. No, you don't want that. You want them to just have a clear, clean experience of awakening, their own awakening. This is a very, very important theme in Buddhism. And it's the beginnings, or maybe not the beginnings, but it's an identification, certainly, of what the Lotus Sutra would later put an absolute teaching of self-enlightenment. Nobody hands it to you. It doesn't come from anywhere else, albeit a phantom land of fragrances and food. It's something we must manifest in our own minds, and that's where it becomes and comes from and is our perception, our experience. It doesn't come from some other land, from some other person, from some other experience. Only our own engagement with it will turn the light on in the attic. We experience it for ourselves. Interesting, yeah? And you must not look on that land with disdain or contempt or rouse thoughts that obstruct progress. Just bring the food. Don't judge the place where the food will be. Just bring the food. Why? Because all the lands in the 10 directions are as empty as the sky. So your opinions are contrived. They're your contrivances. It is just that. Since the Buddhas wish to convert those who delight in a lesser doctrine, they do not reveal the full purity of the land. That's up to those individuals who partake of the food. Buddha-ness, the Dharma. At that time, the phantom bodhisattva, having received the bowl of rice, joined the 9 million bodhisattvas in all, relying upon the might and supernatural power of the Buddha and upon Vimalakirti's power, suddenly vanished from that world, and then, in the space of an instant, arrived at Vimalakirti's house. He must have a pretty big house, yeah? Again, this is all a mental exercise, yeah? Hopefully, Shariputra isn't counting the spots on the wall at this point. Is he paying attention? Is he hearing this? As much as this is directed towards Shariputra, it's directed to all of us, figuratively speaking, in this room with Vimalakirti. Right? Vimalakirti immediately conjured up 9 million lion seats beautifully adorned like the ones that were already there, and the bodhisattvas all sat down in them. Like I said, big house. The bodhisattva then, well, this house is the earth. Click. Who turned the light on? The bodhisattva then presented the bowl filled with the fragrant rice to Vimalakirti. The fragrance of the rice perfumed the entire city of Vaishali, as it should, because this house is the earth, right? And the whole 1,000,000,000-fold world, well, more than the earth, evidently, all life, mind, sentience. The Brahmins, lay believers, and others of Vaishali, smelling this fragrant aroma, were delighted in body and mind, sighing with admiration and at something they had never known before. That's the nature of aha, yeah. At that time, Moon Canopy, a leader among the rich men, accompanied by 84,000 persons. 84,000. It's no coincidence that that number comes up in all of these millions and so forth. 84,000, you know that number, right? How often have you heard that there in Buddhism there are 84,000 teachings of the Buddha? 84,000 teachings of Buddhism, 84,000, on and on and on and on. It's an indication that this meal is the Dharma. And it's being shared with, open to, available to everyone in the 1,000 million fold world. And here come all of the teachings, 84,000 of them, to Vimalakirti's house. Seeing the vast number of bodhisattvas gathered in the room and the lion seats, tall, broad, and beautifully adorned, they were all filled with delight. All of the teachings are coming to the fore here. After paying obeisance to the bodhisattvas and major disciples, they retired and stood to one side. Various earth deities, sky deities, heavenly beings, the world of forms, smelling the fragrant aroma, all likewise came to Vimalakirti's house. Again, this is all hyperbole to make it a visual, mental example of this meal, this Dharma being the ultimate thing, reaching far and wide, high and low, smart, stupid, experienced, inexperienced, ignorant, on the path, anyone. This is it. This is the meal. This is the point. This is what you should all be focused upon. Shariputra. Then Vimalakirti says to Shariputra and the other great voice hearers, Shravakas, Sirs, come to eat this rice from the thus come one, delicious as sweet dew. It is redolent with the odor of great pity, compassion, but you must not eat it in a narrow-minded manner. You will never digest it. What does he mean by that? This is the goal of the teachings. This is the bright light of equanimity, the point of Buddha's teachings, the fully experienced Buddha-ness of mind. If you come to learn about it, eat it, practice it, integrate it into a mind that is set on lesser teachings, can I make a poster out of it and put it on the wall? That might have been a bad idea, but you know what I mean? If your mind is still stuck on these lower teachings, lesser teachings, these, if you're so convinced that what you're doing is actually all that's needed, and this great meal is going to be mentally experienced by you to be just something you can put in your pocket to augment what you're doing, you're going to have indigestion. You're not going to be able to deal with this. This teaching needs to replace your attachments, your entanglements with those lesser teachings, those lesser attitudes, those lesser attachments. Like right now, I just wish I had a cookie. Your earthly distractions must cease so that you can properly digest this well overarching experience, enlightenment. Right? It doesn't compare with what's going on in your distracted monkey mind. You need to shut that down so that you can fully focus on the merits of this teaching, of this fragrant rice. Right? You can't walk up with a beer in one hand, take a slug, have a spoonful of this rice, and appreciate this rice. Some of the other voice hearers thought to themselves, there's only a little rice. How can it feed all the people in this great assembly? There it is. Once again, you're not paying attention. How much of a hyperbole must I make of this fragrant rice, this dharma, for you to stop thinking in your little ways? Oh, there ain't enough rice there. Well, I guess I'll have to get a small spoon. Where the hell is your mind? But the Phantom Bodhisattva said, quote, do not try to use your voice hearers' petty virtue and petty wisdom in appraising the immeasurable blessings and wisdom of the thus come one. Get over yourself. Literally. Though the 4 seas run dry, this rice never will come to an end. Every person here could eat helpings the size of Mount Sumeru and do so for a whole kalpa, but still it would never be exhausted. Oh. Why? Because this is the leftovers from a meal eaten by persons who have acquired inexhaustible merits through the precepts, meditation, wisdom, emancipation, and the insight of emancipation. Therefore, it can never be exhausted. Buddha, the Dharma, the experience of Buddha-ness, isn't quantifiable. What is quantifiable? Attachment, identification. Stuff is quantifiable. Look at how much trouble... Look at how much trouble cosmologists, physicists, mathematicians are having with trying to quantify the universe. They can't. They're trying to invent ways of quantifying it. The rice in this bowl was never used to feed to satisfaction all the members of the assembly, yet it remained as it was, without any sign of depletion. The bodhisattvas, voice hearers, and heavenly and human beings who ate the rice had a sense of bodily ease and a delight of mind. Like the bodhisattvas in the country of the all-delights and the adornments, and a wonderful fragrance emanated from the pores of all of them. It changed their very physical existence. It altered Saha world. It altered samsara, this dharma, this bowl of rice. Like the fragrance of the trees in the land called many fragrances. At that time, Vimalakirti asked the bodhisattvas from the country many fragrances, quote, how does the thus come one fragrance accumulated preach the law? How does he enlighten people? The Bodhisattva replied, quote, the thus come one in our land does not employ words in his exposition. He just uses various fragrances to induce heavenly and human beings to undertake the observance of the precepts. He lets people experience for themselves enlightenment. He doesn't rely on words, because words are manipulations. They're cutouts. They're stand-ins. They're little maps written to try to have people guide themselves to the goal. But he doesn't even bother with the words or the maps. He just says, experience the goal. Experience emancipation. Do it. Find a way and do it. Each bodhisattva sits under a fragrant tree, and when he smells the marvelous fragrance, he immediately attains the samadhi known as the storehouse of all virtues. Persons who are able to attain this samadhi all become endowed with the blessings of a bodhisattva. Did you pick up on that ritual? It's none other than chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. This is what we do. When someone is interested or wants to be a student or exposed to this teaching, what's the first thing we do? Come chant with me. Once we chant together, we'll sit in front of my mandala and I'll talk afterwards. But first, let's experience this wonderful fragrance, this bowl of non-ending bowl of rice. Let's experience what it is the goal is, and then we can sit with our words and try to gain samsaric insights to keep us focused on the goal. That's the way of practice. That's the way of bodhisattva. The bodhisattvas then asked Vimalakirti, now, how does the world-honored one Shakyamuni preach the law? Vimalakirti replied, the living beings of this land are stubborn and strong-willed and hard to convert. Therefore, the Buddha uses strong language when preaching to them in order to tame and control them. See, this is a discussion of the earlier teachings. Don't eat for 7 days. Understand the nature of hunger. Don't speak for X amount of time. Understand the workings of your mind, your faulty adherence to words and speech. Live in seclusion so you're not constantly distracted by your genitalia and your avarice. On and on and on. We don't do that today. Maybe we should, but we don't do that today because we have a greater sense of knowing about our urges and how they control us. But 3,000 years ago, they had no clue. They just responded or lamented. But it's a response. They react to life. Remember the tree analogy? Just plummeting through life, responding to whatever branch they hit. Supposedly, in this age of degeneration, you and I have a greater capacity for recognizing that. And hopefully, with that recognition, we can master it. We can overtake it. Sometimes that seems like wishful thinking, doesn't it? Given what we observe in the world. But there's a lot of greatness in the world. There's a lot of amazing bodhisattva behavior in the world. This world it's an incredible time to be a human being right now. You know, the sensation of misery and war. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Believe me, it overtakes me many times. But we must also realize that that is just the nature of sensation and human beings gossiping. That in the meantime, there are a lot of people, you and I, working diligently to instantiate a Buddha mind, a bodhisattva existence. And we do impact our environments. How can we not? Our environment is a reflection of us. If we elevate ourselves, we are elevating our environment. We're not separate. We have to have confidence in that. That's what these teaching, learning, studying sessions are all about. Keep that confidence. He says this is hell, the hell of incessant suffering, yeah? This is the realm of beasts. This is the realm of hungry spirits. These are the difficult conditions. This is the place where stupid people are born. These are the misdeeds of the body. These are the retribution for misdeeds of the body. These are the misdeeds of the mouth. These are the retribution for misdeeds of the mouth. These are the misdeeds of the mind. These are the retribution for the misdeeds of the mind. These are the early teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, trying to get your mind to focus and understand why it isn't. This is the killing of living beings. This is the retribution for killing living beings. This is taking what is not given to you. This is the retribution for taking what is not given to you. This is the sexual misconduct. This is the retribution for sexual misconduct. This is lying. This is the retribution for lying. This is being double-tongued. This is the retribution for being double-tongued. This is harsh speak. This is the retribution for harsh speech. This is specious talk, rumor-mongering. This is the retribution for specious talk. This is greed. This is the retribution for greed. This is wrath. And this is the retribution for wrath. He's just described the Eightfold Noble Path, the Hinayana, the Agama, all of the previous teachings to the Mahayana, and in the Mahayana, trying to awaken our human monkey mind to shift its focus because it can. The first thing you have to teach people, humans, about their sentient mind is that it's sentient and is directed by their agency. You're not just an organism plummeting through time. You can be, and you can just stay there, therefore experiencing all the lower realms, right? The realms of hungry spirits, the realms of beasts, all of that. But you don't have to. In the end, it's a choice. It's a choice you're making by default. It's a choice you're making by not making a choice. You can make a choice to be enlightened, to be liberated, emancipated from that engine. I keep feeling something on my head. Anyway, do you understand? This is really laid out. And as a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra, it should be so crystal clear to us. Without the Lotus Sutra, this might still seem, we may be lost in the hyperbole of it, the symbolisms of it, and not really get it. But as practitioners of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, it's super obvious what's being said here. And this is years before the Lotus Sutra. It's preparatory. So when Nichiren talks about provisional teachings, this is what he means. And he goes on, these are erroneous views. This is the retribution for erroneous views. This is stinginess. This is the retribution for stinginess. This is breaking the precepts. This is the retribution for breaking the precepts. This is anger. This is the retribution for anger. This is sloth. This is the retribution for sloth. This is distractedness. This is the retribution for distractedness, Shariputra. This is stupidity, and this is the retribution for stupidity. So, this is the way Shakyamuni has been teaching. Getting people to recognize what their mind is doing and what results from their minds doing it. That's what all of that is, yeah? This is accepting the precepts. This is violating. This is what ought to be done. This is what ought not to be done. This is creating obstacles. This is not creating obstacles. This is incurring blame. This is avoiding blame. This is purity. This is defilement. This is to have outflows. This is to be free of outflows. This is the wrong way. This is the correct way. This is the conditioned. This is the unconditioned. This is the mundane world. This is nirvana. This is samsara. This is Buddha-ness. Yeah? These people who are difficult to convert have minds like monkeys. There's that monkey analogy again. Therefore, one must resort to various methods in order to control and regulate their minds. Only when they can be tamed and made obedient. It is like dealing with an elephant or a horse that is wild and unruly. One must apply sharp blows till it feels them in its bones, and then it can be tamed. And it is the same with these stubborn and strong-willed beings who are difficult to convert. Therefore, one uses all sorts of bitter and piercing words, and then they can be made to observe the precepts. So, those of you who've always heard that Buddhists talk quietly and everything is kind and generous, that's pretty enough, but does it really penetrate? There is a time for being direct, demanding, strict, and there is a time to be generous and kind, but not coddling, because there's an effort involved here. We are monkey minds in our plummeting through life. To actively influence that, to really take up agency and enlighten ourselves, takes effort. And if you're not prepared for that effort, you're just going to fall away as easily as you got involved. This is the problem we've witnessed with lots of organizations, yeah? When people are coddled, told they're going to get all the stuff that they want. Be happy, be happy, be happy. How many of them get tired of the effort and just go, I'll do this another way, poof, and they're gone? That's horrifying. It should be horrifying, because it means you've done a horrible job of indicating to them this bowl of rice, this endless fount of fragrance, transcendent experience. You've undersold it. Or worse, you've sold it with samsaric baubles. Of course it doesn't penetrate. Shariputra. Yeah? When those bodhisattvas had finished listening to this explanation, they all exclaimed, they never heard anything like this, yeah? We have never heard of such a thing before! Exclamation mark. A world-honored one like Shakyamuni, who conceals his immeasurable powers of freedom and preaches the law in a manner that will please the mean in spirit in order to save and liberate all beings? And these bodhisattvas, how zealous of them in their immeasurably great pity to condescend to be born in this Buddha land. Bodhisattvas of the earth. Vimalakirti said, the bodhisattvas of this land are indeed steadfast in their great pity for all living beings. It is just as you have said, and the enrichment and benefit they bring to living beings in one lifetime here is greater than that bestowed in other worlds over the space of hundreds of thousands of kalpas. Why? Because in this Saha world, there are 10 good practices that do not exist in any of those pure lands. Wow, bold statement, yeah? Running along, but I'm getting close to the end of this chapter, so I'm going to finish it, okay? What are these 10? Almsgiving, being generous to others, which does away with poverty and destitution. Pure precepts, which do away with violation of the prohibitions. Forbearance, which does away with anger. Have a bit of patience. Assiduousness, which does away with sloth. Keep making the effort, or you just slide into falling through life again. Meditation, which does away with distractedness of mind, right? Because focus on Buddha. If you don't do it regularly, you'll just slip back into the Saha world of attachments. The explanation of how to remove oneself from difficulties, which saves those who face the 8 difficulties. The doctrine of the great vehicle, which saves those who delight in the lesser vehicles. Lesser vehicle, Hinayana. The cultivation of good roots, which rescues those who are lacking in virtue, and the 4 ways of winning people, which are constantly employed to guide living beings to success. These are the 10. You can research each of those on their own. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, right? We've gone beyond this enumeration, but if you want to know what all of those mean, you can do so. They'll just become obvious, and maybe those are your insights that you need to read and research to solidify your conviction, yeah? The Bodhisattva said, what methods must these bodhisattvas carry out in their practices in this Saha world so that they may be born free of boils and sores in a pure land? That's quite visual. In other words, what efforts do they have to make for their experience of Buddha-ness in this environment of monkey minds, yeah? Vimalakirti replied, these bodhisattvas must carry out 8 methods in their practices in this world in order to be born free of boils and sores in a pure land. What are these 8? They must enrich and benefit living beings, but look for no recompense. Just do it from compassion, yes? They must take upon themselves the sufferings of all living beings, and what merits they acquire thereby shall all be a gift to those beings. In mind, they must be like other living beings, humbling themselves, descending to their level, erecting no barriers. We're the same. I'm not some lofty being. Don't let your ego, arrogance, right? Your position, your superior, get rid of all of that. This is about coursing as a bodhisattva, the Buddha way. That is what is superior. Not me, this vessel, this communicative apparatus, right? So if you're an unenlightened sort who uses harsh speech and does a lot of things that are not good, that doesn't mean that I have to do the not good, but it means that I need to sit and mirror you in some ways so that you see me as a compatriot, not some superior being coming to teach you how to be better. Do you see the definition there? We need to be in the people. That doesn't mean we need to be beer slogging, thieves in order to ingratiate with ourselves with people. We still behave in a respectful manner, but we don't impose our manner like it's something for them to emulate. We bring them the bowl of rice. They shall regard other bodhisattvas as though they were looking at the Buddha himself. When they hear a sutra they have not heard before, they shall not doubt it, and they shall not dispute with or oppose the voice hearers. They shall not envy the alms received by others, nor boast of their own gains. In carrying out these methods, they must regulate and control their minds, constantly reflecting on their own faults and not censuring the shortcomings of others. At all times, they shall, with a single mind, strive to acquire merit. These are the 8 methods. When Vimalakirti and Manjushri expounded these teachings to the great assembly, 100,000 heavenly and human beings all set their minds on attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and 10,000 bodhisattvas were able to accept the truth of birthlessness. So that's fragrances accumulated. Now, interestingly enough, the next chapter is actions of the bodhisattva. Now, how does this, I have to bring it up because it's been thrown at me several times over the years. Not a lot, but every now and again somebody takes me to task. It's funny. But if you read just a few Gosho, Nichiren's writings, you will see in Nichiren somebody who's not afraid of tearing into other teachers and other sects for their misguided teachings of Shakyamuni's 84,000 teachings, yeah? And you'd say, well, didn't you just say you're not supposed to speak poorly of other bodhisattvas? That's a great error? But you have to understand, when Nichiren is talking about Kobo or Honen, he's not tearing them down saying Honen has a crooked nose. He stands funny. He talks with a lisp. Nichiren never does that. What Nichiren is reproaching is their misleading teachings, their bad contortions. They're peeing in that bowl of rice. Nichiren takes exception to Shakyamuni's teachings being sullied. And the reaction to that bad behavior is a lot of minds being stunted from their enlightenment. That's heinous. That's unacceptable. That's vastly different than the reproachments that Vimalakirti is talking about here. Do you see? Do you understand the difference? If not, let me know in the comments and I'll make it more clear. I don't want to belabor this point. It's just that I have heard it used in the wrong way, misunderstood in itself as to how we should course as bodhisattvas. As Vimalakirti said a couple chapters ago, sometimes bodhisattvas can seem to be rather harsh, as the Buddha himself. But the harshness isn't about beating down some individual as a person. It's about redirecting their mind, breaking through barriers of attachment that are keeping people foolish, ignorant, resisting their own enlightenment. Sometimes, I hate to use this word, but you guys will all be familiar with the term tough love. Yeah, sometimes people are so deluded, you damn near need to slap them around to get them out of it. I'm not suggesting you slap somebody around because they're attached to their God or whatever. Not at all. But mentally, in a challenge of somebody who supposedly is pursuing the way, They must be corrected when they're deluded. That doesn't mean walk through the mall and anyone who doesn't say, yeah, I'm a Buddhist, you need to confront. You know, this argument, I don't know why I need to get into it at this level. We seem to live in a time, though, where every little thing we say has to be challenged from 1,000 directions because we need to take a stand and be in position. No, I'll tell you what the word I'm searching for is integrity. We must maintain integrity. Integrity in ourselves, integrity in the teaching, integrity in our compassion, integrity from those sentient minds we interact with. We must demand dignity and integrity. And that's not always pretty and calm and quiet. Not that it can't be. But then you have to measure effectiveness. Sometimes the nature of the cure has to rise to the nature of the disease. It doesn't stay there, but breakthroughs are termed thus because they break through. All right, that's enough. And once again, I have to really, I so appreciate your practice and your involvement. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share. Although I have to put the caveat in that you should share it in person. Have somebody come over, chant with them, or go over to their place, chant with them, and then share. Don't just indiscriminately share by emails because those ears aren't ready. Unless they're prepped through attachment to their Buddha-ness, you'll just give them food for argumentation. Lesser teachings, yeah? All right, I'm going to let you go. I always learn something when I do these, so thank you for helping me do that. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.